long time ago, I made a video about comments I received on my YouTube channel, which were not that pretty or let's say interesting. So I thought it is such a long time ago, I want to do it again and read some comments I receive here on YouTube and discuss them a little bit, or, you know, add my opinion to it and see if the comments are true or not, although it is always just my opinion, you know, my reaction to it. So you can listen to it or think what you want, but at least you get one opinion and we can see and discuss a little bit like what these comments are about. So before we have the fun to go through all of these comments, some of them a little bit negative, some of them a little bit insulting, but yeah, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos. I love making videos for you. Also leave a comment down below and let me know what kind of videos you want to watch next. And also grab my little ebook about if Sweden is the right fit for you. You will find the link in the description down below. Let's get started. Okay, I have my laptop down here and I will show you a comment on the screen, but let's go through it. What about the Swedish multiculturalism disasters happening? 61 no-go zones, bombings, rapes, crazy lib politics in Sweden allowing these other uncivilized cultures to harm its citizens, and Swedish culture. We are skipping Sweden during our Europe trip next year. So this is actually someone who doesn't live in Sweden or doesn't want to move to Sweden, want to maybe visit Sweden, but doesn't because of all the things they said. And, you know, you can over-research things. I wouldn't say that anything is false, what this person said here, but it also is not true. You know, when you research like a little pain somewhere, you know, let's say a pain in your shoulder, you will find that it could be cancer, or it could be just because you're sitting really weird, or, you know, it could be something very harmless. Anyways, I find that, you know, bombings are happening, but it's, you know, like in every country, things are happening, people are getting murdered, you know, bad things are happening. And it's obviously horrible, horrible. But I swear to God, Sweden is a wonderful country. You don't have to be scared to go on the street and think like any second you get raped. Honestly, it's such an exaggeration. Like, I live here, you know, I do these things, like I go out even at night every now and then, even if it doesn't happen that often. And of course, as a woman, or, you know, in general, as a human, you have to be sometimes careful. You know, again, in every city, in every country in this world, because there are bad people out there, but by no means is Sweden like, you know, as horrible as this comment actually says. So I would totally disagree with this. But do let me know if you have any questions about it. Let's go to the next comment. Next year, I will go to Sweden to spend my 4th year of high school abroad, but I've been hearing a lot of bad things about the weather, the people that are not really chatty, and bad stuff like that. I've actually never been there, but it has always been my dream to move to Sweden, even for a little bit. So because of the rumors, I'm having doubts, but your video helped a lot. Let me help you a little bit more, because again, it maybe ties together a little bit with a previous like comment. Especially if you want to just like test out what it is like to live in Sweden, do it. Honestly, do it. Like, yes, there are winters here in Sweden. And you know that. I mean, that is true. That research is true. You know, you have winters here. But there's also like a lot of snow, for example, depending on where you move, of course. But, you know, Stockholm and up, I would say definitely. And that could be so much fun as well. You know, you don't have to be scared of cold weather and snow and stuff like that. I mean, if you really hate it and think you cannot live in that kind of environment, obviously don't move to Sweden. For sure, there's many other countries where there is cold winters. Don't move to these countries if you don't want to. But honestly, cold winters can be really magical. Like, there can be something really good about it. So I feel like you don't have to worry about it if you want to move to Sweden for a short period of time. And when it comes to people are not really chatty, I don't know, again, what your expectations are. But again, I chat with my neighbors, and wherever you move, and especially if you're a young person and maybe you go to university or have an exchange semester, whatever, you will meet a lot of people, and you will meet a lot of Swedish people. Like, Swedish people are also very curious. Not all of them, but some of them are curious. You don't only need a few people, who are chatty, and they definitely exist. You don't need the whole of Sweden to be chatty to you. I think that people would complain if people are so all in your face all the time and want to chat. I think people would definitely complain about that as well. And then I have a very cool comment which says Swedish social life is, and there's a specific emoji. And obviously there's a lot of detail to this comment, but I mentioned it in a few of my videos. It's not my personal opinion, but there are quite a few people who think that it's impossible to have a social life here in Sweden. And obviously everyone is different, but you already know, if you have watched any of my videos, I would disagree, because you can find people, you can find your people, your tribe. Maybe it's not every single person is maybe not Swedish then in this community, tribe you're building, whatever, but it doesn't have to be, I think. Especially if you don't speak the Swedish language, it's more likely that you maybe meet more people from other countries, or there's also a certain type where Swedes who went abroad, or you have traveled a little bit, they're just more open to others than maybe Swedes who never left their countries. I know for Germany it's kind of the same. Like, you get along so much better with Germans who know what it is like to live abroad, or at least to travel and, have to adapt to a different environment. These people are more approachable than people who just don't want, many people in their lives, or people who don't speak their language, or whatever it is. So, interesting comment. Next one. If you live in Sweden but never really interact with Swedish people, I start wondering why you're even here. And 90% are here for the welfare. Sure, Stockholm is pretty multicultural, but if you only befriend people from other countries, where exactly do you live? Certainly not in Sweden. If you don't interact with the native people, how will you ever understand the culture? So maybe, I can't actually remember where this comment was, but I did make a video about my social life in video where I reveal that a lot of friends are non-Swedish. I do have Swedish friends, but I actually also know them from before my Swedish life, before I moved to Sweden. So this person felt a little bit insulted that I live in a country where I don't have a lot of Swedish friends, and therefore I will not understand, the Swedish culture. And I feel like, first of all, it's none of your business, sorry, but why do you sit in front of your computer and have to comment on that? Like, why does it make you so angry? It's a very personal thing, and it's not that I choose to only have, people from other countries to be my friends. I think it takes maybe longer to make Swedish friends, but also, as I mentioned, like, I'm actually pretty good with my neighbors. We chat so many times and just stand outside and even have dinners together, and they are Swedish people. And it's interesting with them because we definitely ask them things about Swedish culture as well, just in general, chat about life. And it's interesting, and it exists. But even if it doesn't, I feel like no judgment really. That is my comment to that comment. This one is a long comment. I don't know if I should read all of this, but I probably have to because I need to answer or give my comment to it. I'm an immigrant. Oh no, actually I remember this comment. And this person is actually quite positive. So we should actually read the whole thing because it's interesting. It comes from an immigrant and it's a perspective from another immigrant. I'm an immigrant, bad word, or expat, fancy word. In Sweden, I'm studying at the university, originally from Latin America. I'm learning Swedish from courses like SFE, and I don't get any benefits like mentioned. Maybe he answered to that other comment. I find Sweden a very welcoming country and I love it. However, I unfortunately see that some people integrate easier than others, and also some Swedes are not so easy to integrate with or make friends with, but they are nice people. But many people, I think, are well integrated and they speak the language. I think integration here is the best I've seen so far. And it is not only about people from the Middle East. There are many English native speakers that just refuse to learn the language because here everyone speaks very well English. In my SFE Swedish for Immigrants class, I see Europeans and Americans that have been in Sweden for 4 or more years working, and they are just starting to learn the language. The matter is more complicated than what it is stated, and gangs are not only of immigrants. My Swedish friends tell me that there are heads of these gangs in many upper management positions within big corporations who are nationals. I mean, it is not perfect, but I think it is the closest to perfection. I am very grateful to this country for welcoming me and treating me well. So obviously there's a lot of information here, and obviously it's just one perspective. We don't know what is true and what isn't, but I find it interesting to hear another opinion, you know, what they think Sweden is like. And I agree, like, that there are some people, Swedish people, where it is really hard to make friends with them. But there are also many more Swedes where it is maybe easier. You just have to find those right people, and maybe you don't find them immediately, you know, depending on what you do, like, and where you can meet new people. It might be a bit more difficult. And, you know, in terms of language, I mean, I've been living here for 3 years now, and I'm German. You know, everyone tells me, obviously, I should be fluent in Swedish already, and I'm not. And, you know, and again, it's a lot of different circumstances, priorities you set for yourself. But I know I will get there, especially if we do stay here in Sweden. One day I will be fluent, and then no one asks me really, I think, how fast I learned the language, you know. At least I can speak the language at some point. And I do understand. I have learned already quite a bit of Swedish. I understand quite a bit. I can read a little bit. Speaking is very hard, obviously, because the practice is not there yet. But all these things will come in place. And again, don't judge other people. Next comment. I live in Sweden as an immigrant, and I was studying there. While studying, I did a research paper on how Sweden integrates immigrants. They are one of the best in Europe, and I saw it with my own eyes. Let's be honest, there's certain people that just shouldn't come to Europe. Okay, so this is another actually comment about, you know, what the integration here in Sweden is, because from outside, it does look, you know, a lot that Sweden has a massive problem with integration. And I'm not saying they don't, but at the end of the day, they are trying, and there's things in place where integration is happening. And I think what I personally probably like also with Sweden is that they're trying, you know, they are not ignoring. They are very aware now of the problems here in Sweden. And yes, maybe they haven't realized them early enough. You know, we cannot judge that, you know, because it is what it is now. We can't reverse it. But, you know, they're trying now to really improve everyone's lives here, you know, and to get rid of, you know, the bad things which are happening. And in terms of immigrants, again, most of the time it's a small amount of immigrants or people, you know, which cause some trouble, but you cannot like make every single immigrant responsible for their actions. So I think that is normally, you know, an easy way of like trying to explain things or find a solution. But let's continue with the next comment. The problem of finding a job as a foreigner is a sad reality, even if you studied at KTH, which is their top school, source my experience. Honestly, I know how hard it is to find a job in Sweden, probably in many countries, but also in Sweden. The whole, you know, pandemic and wars, I mentioned that in my other videos because it's just a reality. The recession time, it doesn't make it easy to find a job. And even if you have amazing credentials, you know, it doesn't guarantee you a job, especially if as a graduate, you have only done really the theory. And I remember that in my times when I was looking for jobs as well, like companies always want experience. And it's hard as a university graduate to find jobs straight away. So I know it's a little bit of a controversy, but you kind of have to have a little bit of experience. And a lot of times as well, when you come here and maybe even have studied somewhere else, you need some experience in working in Swedish companies. Not always the case, but often, and therefore it's also quite hard to find sometimes a job here when you have a lot of competition. Sad reality. Next comment. It sounds like the gang violence mass shooting in Sweden is the highest in all Europe. There's also many gang activities and teens recruited in Malmö and Gothenburg. The longest turf war in history of Sweden is in Gothenburg. You should be careful. I don't know about mass shootings. I think mass shootings are more a thing in the US. There is definitely gang violence, yes. Again, there's nothing to deny. It exists here. I read it in the news as well, but I only read it in the news. I haven't, experienced it, and obviously you always have to be careful, but I don't really live in fear. It happens in certain areas, of course, sometimes in more accessible areas where, I hang out. As well, it does happen. We do live in a city. In every country, there's crime going on. It's I can only repeat myself. It's bad, but the reality still looks different. Again, I read these things in the news as well, and I want it to improve. I want the government to obviously take care of it. And if it wasn't there at all, that would be the best scenario ever. And it's not. But, and you have to be careful and keep your eyes open, especially with schools, maybe if you have boys or kids in a certain age. But I haven't heard much, about certain things, but maybe, we don't live in these areas or we don't go to these kind of schools. Like, I'm sure there's some truth in it. But at the end of the day, it's still a quite peaceful country. Really, it is quite a peaceful country. And even in Stockholm, I love Stockholm. I love walking around Stockholm. I never really feel frightened. It is a beautiful city. It's a peaceful city. And obviously a few things here and there happen, and I don't know. I would still... If you watch the news, honestly, every single city and every single country is not great. Because if you see actually what happens, what kind of crime happens in each city, you would just want to be at home and not go anywhere. Especially when it comes to travel, like traveling to other countries, like, I don't know, Mexico, and even the US. Honestly, if you look what's happening in the US, I think it's crazy, But then I know that people live peacefully there as well. So things are happening, but we also have our lives and, just avoid the news. Okay, not avoid the news, but don't be consumed of the news. Swedish school is 90% propaganda. Please be aware of that. Left propaganda. I would not put my child into a Swedish class. Swedish school has a history of massive influence from East Germany. The 60s is a lot of Swedish teachers went to Eastern Germany for education about their system. Honestly, when I read this, I was a bit, I was amused. Let's say that, amused. Because I'm from East Germany. I don't know if you know that because I've never really talked about this, but I was born in East Germany. So I was born in the DDR, or in English GDR, German Democratic Republic. So it was occupied by the Russians or the Soviets, and basically it was a communist part of the country. So communism is very different from democracy. And I grew up in that part until I was, how old was I? 6, I think, 5 or 6. So obviously I was a young child, but I have the influence of my parents as well, who grew up pretty much their entire life in East Germany until their 30s, I guess. Actually late 20s, 30s. And I don't know, like, go to Germany and go to German schools. I think they have a crazy influence of, I don't know what it is. It's not only East Germany, but the school system is definitely very still industrialized, you know, like preparing kids for industrialization, which, you know, the world has changed. So I don't know. I would be very interested to know what he really means with that. What is the, you know, curriculum or the part of it, like in the what East Germany teaches those kids? Like, I don't know if I can agree. And obviously I cannot talk from experience yet. I'm very curious. My daughter will start school in 1 month. We are very excited about it. And then we will see a little bit what school is like. And then maybe I can talk a little bit more about, you know, the curriculum, the way they teach the children here in Sweden in Swedish class. And then we can revisit this comment. And the last comment is, Sweden is a dead country. Look at faces, no emotions, no feelings. Yeah, do I agree with that? No. I mean, it's also summer. I guess people are happier, but even in winter, I don't know. Do you go? Yeah, I guess if you compare it maybe with really South American countries, you know, they are probably a little like happier or walk around with a smile. Maybe there is some truth. But I would definitely not say it's a dead country and no feelings, no emotions. Definitely don't agree with that. People have emotions, and what I like as well, a little bit what I got, that actually Swedish parents want their children to feel their feelings. They're not, you know, shutting children up who like cry or have a tantrum, stuff like that. At least that's something I observed a little bit. So I don't know, it's definitely not a dead country. It's very, very lively. Like, people love going out and going for walks in nature, hanging out at the beaches, you know, talking to their neighbors, meeting up with friends, families. Like, it's not a dead country. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you thought about the comments down there. I'll see you in my next video. Hey da!